All right. So welcome to Make a Ripple, Discover the Keys to Your Impact. So I'm going to be really straightforward up front with you today. My goal for you is to help you see how awesome you are and really how unique your story is, because that's one of the things that holds us back from telling our stories is fears. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But so telling your story, does it matter? Does it actually matter to anybody? Well, I always say that you've been through some transformation, you've discovered something, you've been through some hard times, you've come out on the other side with something to share, something unique that's magical, and no one else really can share it. And the reason is because your passions, your perspective are unique. No one else in the whole universe has those things the way that you see it. So you can bring your message to the world in a different way than anyone else can. So let's dive into that. The first one is passion. And the reason, so why don't we tell our stories? Why don't we talk about our passions? Those are those fears and barriers I was talking about at the beginning. And after working with lots and lots of authors over the years, I hear these things over and over again. The first one is, I don't know where to begin. Like, your story's big, right? It's your whole life. But you have to be discerning about which stories to tell and when to tell them. So the other thing is fears about, like, I'm not an expert. I'm not expert enough. I don't have an MBA or a PhD, or I haven't done years and years of research into this topic. And to that, I had a client give me this phrase one time that says, do you believe in the power of your own experience? And there's really nothing else to say about that. You know, you are the only person who's an expert in your experience. And the transformation, the things that you've taken away from that experience and brought into your own life, and how you're bringing that forth as your impact. So I want this exercise to help you take maybe a different view of your life than you have before and put things together in a little different way. So if you are telling your story, you might come up with some different stories or a different way to share those stories through this exercise. And you may come up with more ideas for new courses to develop in Tim's case, or more books to write in Erin's case. She's a prolific writer. And all the people who are watching this later, let it bubble up as to how all these things come together. So let's dive into
What?
the first part, which is...
Well, I'm still sick, and it started last Wednesday.
Hey, Erin, can you put your microphone on mute, please?
Oh, so sorry.
No worries. Glad you're here. Okay, we talked about your unique magic, and it starts with your passions. So I'm going to give you a little example before I have you dive into the workbook and talk about your own passions. So I never expected to be passionate about gratitude until I was. You know, I didn't think I'd ever become a gratitude expert. And how would that even happen? Well, it happened through my experience. And that experience was potent because I feel like gratitude saved me. If you haven't read my book, The Gratitude Connection, the story's in there, and I'll just give you a super quick story. And that is that I was going through a really hard time, and I was living in a state of fight or flight, just a state of anxiety all the time. And what anxiety does is it takes your perspective and it narrows it into a tunnel vision so that that's all you can see. All you can really relate to is the pain that you're in. And so it's really difficult to get out of that sometimes. And gratitude is what did it for me. I remembered something I had read a long time ago in a young adult book. And it was about this practice in the Jewish tradition called Hakarat HaTov, which means giving thanks for your blessings a couple times a day. And I thought, well, that sounds great if I had anything to be grateful for, because I thought I didn't. But I started anyway. I kind of forced myself. And within a few days, my energy changed, and I could noticeably see it because my relationships changed. When I was just being negative and focused on the things that were going wrong, my phone wasn't ringing very much. I wasn't getting texts. Nobody was reaching out because I was not fun to be around. And my business was really flat. So that showed me after about 5 days, my phone started ringing again. People started reaching out for projects and for dinner and lunch and let's go on a hike. It was just dramatic. So I became hugely passionate about gratitude, and I felt like I couldn't keep it to myself. It made such a difference in my life that I started sharing it with everybody else, and they started seeing a difference. So that's how a passion got sparked in me. But passions come from all kinds of places. And so I'm going to invite you now to turn to your workbook. And if you don't have your workbook, you can use a piece of paper or a notebook or whatever. And turn to page 2. It's actually the 4th page of your workbook, but it starts with question 1. And we're just going to take a couple of minutes to talk about your passions, to write down your passions, and just use this as a brainstorming exercise. So think about starting from when you were super young. Like, what were those things that made you super happy as a kid? Was it playing in the dirt? Was it playing with toys or dance, or your obsession with dinosaurs or ponies or whatever it was? And take that all the way up to now. Just make a brainstorming list of all those things that you have a passion for, personally, professional, creatively, in sports or cars or whatever it is. So I'll give you a couple minutes now to do that. If you have any questions, just pop on or put them in the chat. Okay, hopefully that gave you enough time to get some brainstorming done, and hopefully you had some happy memories about passions in the past, passions now. So question 2 is, why are you passionate about these things? Like, where did this stuff come from? Sometimes you just come into this life with them. I know a kid who was at 4 years old, he started begging to go to karate classes. And actually started, I think, at 2 or 3. He had some obsession with karate, and his parents could never figure out where that came from. He brought it in. So when you take your list of passions, you can transfer those down into question 2 excuse me, and just put a word or a phrase next to that about maybe how that passion came to be from the time you were a kid and all the way up to now. I'll give you a few minutes to work on that now. Thanks, Erin. I forgot I was muted. Welcome back, everybody. If you haven't finished questions 1 and 2, you can always come back to that in your workbook and revisit those things. And as these things start to make connections, you might come up with more things as you go, because you're looking at your life from a point of view you probably haven't looked at it for a while. So when you think about your passions, all the passions in your life from the time you were a kid up until now, how are they affecting what you do now in your life, in your work, your play, your all your relationships from professional and personal? How do those things affect how you operate in the world? So take a minute to jot some things down, and then I'd love to come back as a group and invite you guys to share anything that you want to share about that. So let's take a minute or two and write some of those things down. Okay, I invite you to come back to the room and unmute. So I'd love for you to share anything that might have been a happy memory for you, kind of an aha moment, something that you picked up that you hadn't seen before.
I'll start.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Um, one of the things that I was remembering was how much I loved like magical realms and imagination, and I had really vivid dreams, like epic, long, vivid dreams, and sometimes I would write them down the next day, and but I kind of got the impression from society that people weren't that interested in those things until Harry Potter came along and became like this big thing. And I went, okay, wait, everybody's interested in that. It seems like that was just such a huge awakening, I think, for a lot of people, but it was like they weren't alone in that. I mean, there were kids wearing capes to school for years after that. You remember that, Tim? And anyway, so that's just, it kind of made me go, so what am I doing? What am I doing with that now? Because that's still where my interest lies.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Laura.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what sort of came up for me, there's a few things that are always there when I do stuff like this, but one that was a little different is just like how much I just loved talking to like everyone I met. Like I would just like, I could be at a gas station and just like start chatting up the, like chatting up the, some random person in the store or whatever, you know, and it was just like that sense of just like unbridled, like, I just want to meet all these people, everybody, you know, and the joy that I kind of found in that. And, you know, I think these days I'm a little more guarded in my connections, you know, but I think the spirit of that, the like joy of that, just like meeting and connecting with people, like deep, you know, I think now just like to greater depths perhaps, but yeah, that was always a fun little part of my childhood.
Sounds like you'd be a good podcast host.
I've done a like live event kind of thing where we did like, I don't know, probably had 30 speakers in 3 days that I like sort of hosted it. That's pretty fun.
That sounds amazing. And it brings your joy of connection and
Yeah, I had a blast. It was yeah, I connected with a bunch of people, and I guess I was the it came across, I guess I was a star a little bit, which was fun. And then it also had like my tech knowledge, because it was like during COVID when no one could meet, and I was just like letting you know, giving more of a light in that time to people. But yeah, it was super fun.
I'd love to encourage you to keep doing that, Tim. We need it now more than ever.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Really fun to have you here.
Yeah.
So Erin put something in the chat. She says, I'm a bit under the weather. For me, golf is where I spent time with my dad. It's also where I was accepted and enough during my childhood. It's where I could be completely me. Writing is another passion. It's where I could express myself. Working out is another one. I watched my dad do it, and he is ageless. Speaking. I love talking and have a lot to say to show people that they are enough just as they are. So thanks, Erin, for sharing those. It's like these passions, they come out in all different ways in our lives. So Jennifer, is there anything you'd like to share in the chat, or go ahead?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. So I was just trying to think of when I was little and things I was, passionate about. And I guess, I really loved spending time with my grandparents, who were really a lot more like my pals than grandparently, as they can be. And also, I was an only child. I had all these books I read. I mean, I just read the same ones over and over. Like the characters in the books were kind of my friends in a weird way. And so I was just trying to mash that into my present day life, and how my friendship circle does seem kind of limited. There's I mean, I have some good friends, but then I've recently moved, and some things that sort of inhibit me from like really embracing friendships. And to sum it up, I would say kind of like Tim, there's this connection with these safe spaces and places where I'm really like being me, with my life, my career, my obsession, which is coffee. I'm a coffee specialist or expert. And so, that whole connection that happens over a cup of coffee is what sort of got me into it well over 20 years ago. So anyway, it was just it's a very eye-opening exercise. I haven't done anything like this at all. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Thank you for being brave enough to share it too, Jennifer. I appreciate that. And connection is the theme I see in all of these things. Like when I hear all of your different passions, I connect with you as you, but it also helps me to connect to my own passions and what I'm passionate about. So that is the reason that we share our passions with each other, right? Like when we get to know each other, sometimes that's where we start. What do you like to do is how we put it, or what do you do for fun? What do you do for work? Those can all speak to our passions. And, I love to see everybody get kind of lit up and sparkly when you talk about your passions. That's a really cool place to be. And I encourage you to be there more often and to really connect with those passions. And that's what we do through telling our story, sharing our story, so that we can connect with that light within ourselves and help bring it out in others, help spark that in other people. It's a powerful reason to share our stories. So thank you, everybody, for playing today on the Make a Ripple Challenge, the first day of it. That was really fun. And I would encourage you to really dive into your workbook and finish that if you didn't get to go through all your passions, and just play with that a little bit and enjoy that feeling and getting back in touch with those passions. So thank you for playing. We'll be here again tomorrow at 8 o'clock Mountain Time, same link. And I can't wait to see you then. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about perspective, and then we'll tie it all together on day 3. So thanks for being here. We will be doing a drawing later. And so we'll announce that. Later in our follow-up. So thanks everybody for being here, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.